So on the 14th we took a trip to Europe. You start from USA and we go to Denmark, Copenhagen, and we fly to Edinburgh. Here, go to Edinburgh, that is Scotland. After that Scotland we go to also Norway, and come back to Vienna. We go to Bratislava, Slovakia, and go from there. We go to Albania, go to Montenegro, go to Kosovo, go to Macdonia, and go back. That's the whole trip, 10 days trip. To be interesting.
Attention, active duty and reserve military personnel. Independence and military requirement. The name of U.S. and LAX is open
4 boarding. Let's rest to Hebrew. We arrived in London. Now 4:20.
Tụi chị mong muốn mấy Tết nè.
Hả?
Tụi chị mong muốn mấy vào. Text message free mà tụi chị get in.
Now we go to Terminal 5 to fly to Copenhagen, Denmark. We at the Heathrow Airport in London right now. Go to 7 p.m. Go to Copenhagen. British Airways 822 get B42 departure. Now is 6:25. Copenhagen.
Nó cách London 1 tiếng nha. London 8 giờ, mới 9 giờ. No, same chứ.
Copenhagen. Now 10 p.m. on the 15th. So we'll fly to Edinburgh, Scotland at 7.
Nice mode. Och detta gäller tills telefonsäkerhetsbältet är släckt. Det blir en...
Sa bên mình đi cho khỏe.
Scotland, Edinburgh, city of Edinburgh.
Để đi tiểu.
We arrived Scotland. Today, April 16, 2015, 8 a.m.
xíu rồi ha. Cũ lắm. Ở cái thành phố cũ.
Ở đây mấy người những bếp nồi xanh hả? Hai liên không?
Chiếc rồi, chỉ có chiếc này.
Một đống chiếc này.
Không có, tức là mình tới cái chỗ mình xuống cái trạm này em chỉ có một chiếc xe này màu xanh. Airlink nếu mà nó đi ngược trở lại thì nó sẽ là airport chị tôi.
Airlink luôn.
Airlink mà đi airport. Airlink là cái name của nó thôi, còn đi airport là cái bảng đi chợ gì.
Next stop, Western Coast.
Train.
The Roxborough Crown Plaza, City Rooms, and the Sheraton Grand Hotel
Lát
and
chiều mình
Spa.
về đi chỗ này xuống chỗ này chơi. Cái khu này hay nè.
Anh mở cái số đó.
Không, cái bờ cá sô mình ở dưới bên này. Mấy cái nhà này hay quá hả? Mấy cái nhà ngộ quá. Cái nhà đẹp ghê. Tới chứ.
Tức là chưa nào? Chưa đâu. Anh mở cái số này. Cái gì ta? này cũng hay chứ.
Cái nhà thờ cái là chỗ này này mà thu vô cái này này.
Ồ cái đó hả?
Ừ.
Ồ, cái đó hay quá. Cái gì nữa?
Cái tượng gì của ai đó.
Ồ Island kia kìa, đằng kia kìa, đúng rồi trạm Island đó.
Chạm cuối cùng á.
Trạm cuối cùng đó.
Rồi chừng nào mình đi airport mình cũng về.
Đây. Cái đó hay quá hả? Trạm cùng nhiều ship rồi biết cái trạm cùng đó.
Ông kia là ông chốt chiêu ông ta chốt chiêu.
Cái park này, cái đó cá sô đó, dưới này coi cá sô đó.
Nếu mà đi tới cá sô thì xách theo lên cá sô để. Cái tiệm là bán được cái nào cái tiệm đó.
We got to the downtown Edinburgh, capital of Scotland.
Chỗ này hay hơn Copenhagen.
Hay nhiều.
Để kêu một đô nó stand more time ở đây. Copenhagen không có gì hết á.
Chỗ nó xin cũng nhiều quá ha. Đây, thằng này nó
Mấy ông này mà nhọc nhìn nhọc thấy mồ. Ở đây như nó có cái con này là cái con. Royal Mouse.
đẹp quá hả?
Bà chụp xuống dưới này lại, chỗ này lại đẹp ghê không?
Cái này ba biết hay lắm nè. Chụp này được nè.
Thôi như thằng phố cổ không.
พี่3 คนอีกทีต้องไปละ
ไม่หมดหรอกแล้ว
Anh nhớ nói mà là ý nó cái thẻ nó sẽ bớt ồ con tự đi cái hot on hot off thì đôi khi cái hot on hot off nó nhiều hơn.
Yeah. Thôi.
Là 25 đồng một lượt. Concession là over 13 đồng cơ bạn.
Cái gì?
Bạn over 60. Alright, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, we're still an active military base, so if you leave it anywhere, the army will take it.
Oh, right.
What?
If you leave it anywhere, the army will take it.
Castle Gate.
Cô gì sao mệt rồi đó nha.
Đúng rồi, đẹp lắm.
Cũng đẹp lắm. Cái thành phố
Anh thích đây hơn là London. Thấy không?
cái này có thể nói đẹp hơn London nữa.
Đẹp hơn London. We'll gunfire at 1 o'clock today.
Exhibition đi xuống này luôn đi. Chụp cái này đi, chụp cái này. Chụp không? Chụp cái danh này không?
Chú ý. Hình shot à?
Cái này nó lên đây cái mò đó.
Now they're reading the sun.
Cái này nó gọi là cao trên hill, trên cái đồi này nè.
Bo gì không hiểu?
Cái thai bo cái này cái cục đó. Nó rót xuống nó mới đẩy cái này. The time bomb này.
Today, yeah.
Beautiful. See the allies Scotland. Gì mà nói bên đây không có trời. Oh.
They can shoot down at you if they feel it's necessary. Don't worry, we don't do that very often anymore. Later on in the 16 and 1700s, they widened the killing ground outside. It is turned into a drill square, but it is most famous now as the home of Edinburgh's military tattoo. For 3 weeks in August, we hold a display of pipes and drums, military bands and dancers from all around the world out there on the Esplanade. They actually build seating for nearly 9,000 people out there and then clear it away again after the show. They'll actually start building the seats pretty soon. We get concerts in July as well, so that's the other reason. Last year we had Tom Jones. Have you heard of Tom Jones? Yep. Yeah, that's not unusual. Anyway, I should warn you, the jokes get worse. Once you got past the killing ground outside, you came to the dry ditch. Now it's always been a dry ditch. We're often asked, has there ever been a moat? Has there ever been any water there? No, I'm afraid not. And the very simple reason for this is we're at the top of a hill. But it is a military barrier. It's there to slow down an attacking army, and if you got past that, you came to the gatehouse, the very first of the castle's buildings. not a very old building in the history of the castle. It only dates from the 1880s, but it was built during the reign of Queen Victoria simply to provide a more attractive front to the castle. Basically, it's there to sell more postcards. But it is a military building. The lower floors house the castle's main guardhouse. The upper floors are known as the court-martial rooms. You see, when that building was first built back in the 1880s, a man had to go there to stand judgment. He had to answer for his crimes and receive punishment in the rooms on the top floor of that building, and that still goes on to the present day, because we now use the gatehouse for weddings. When you get into the gate, I should have checked, is anyone on honeymoon? Once you go through the front gate, you find yourself in the ward system. Now there are 3 wards to Edinburgh Castle. I will take you through the 2 main ones. You've already made it through the smallest ward, it's not very big. All it is it's the area from the gatehouse just as far as the portcullis gate here. That's known as the Never Managed Gate here, which is why I was surprised to see you guys. So we're going to move just a little further into the middle ward to the end of the Argyle Battery. Then I'll tell you about some of the cannons within the castle.
Okay.
Did you see the portcullis gate? You can move. The problem with it is now,
Đứng này chụp thấy xấu
miles
không?
out that way, it empties into the North Sea, and further is just an old Scots word for river estuary. So what you see here is salt water. Over on the other side of the River Forth, though, you can see some land. Now,
Muốn sụp thì sao chống lấy cái ấy chống lại, lấy cái sẵn lại.
There's another one, sir. So when America was fighting for their independence, some of the soldiers that were on the floor rounded up. Here and I don't know. That's the story. I don't know.
Mặc quần sạch vậy.
Je n'ai pas encore reçu de responsable policier. J'ignore. Pourquoi des plastiques n'ont pas dans les chambres des étages supérieurs du château? Il est indigne que nous dormions dans ces conditions. Mais ridicule porte-pointe pour recouvrir les haillons qu'ils nous ont donnés. Il n'est guère étonnant que les malades soient si nombreux. Nous sommes comme dans une grotte. Middleton devrait être tué. Mais pas une fois du château le sang est défoncé. On en arrive plus à la charge de glace.
Guys, could I ask everyone to come off the grass, please? Thank you. Vous pouvez vous mettre comme ça maintenant.
Là đánh nhau với ai á chắc đúng không?
Đó không biết gì hả? World War One.
1941 đó, 1914 nữa hả?
19 World War One. World War One.
Second World là 4 mấy hả?
Số World là 3945.
Anton Mary Queen of Scots. Cái Sterling Castle là của cái ông vua đó, cái Sterling đó.
Only we have the honor to pay their old debts. Good God, what is this? An entire surrender.
Khi mà anh nói England cũng là như vậy thì nhau.
Back in 1990, I really think of anywhere else to display it, and so it's displayed with the The problem is security and also accessibility.
Exactly.
So an old school would have liked to put it back.
the building because everything, including water, had to be carried up to your house. So the higher up the building you were, the more flights of stairs you had to carry up all of your supplies. The nearer you were to street level, well then the closer you were to the sounds and smells of the animals milling about in the streets. It was said that you could smell the old town of Edinburgh from 3 miles away. The stench was just known as the flowers of Edinburgh. 10 at night, you would have heard the shout Gardez-Lou, which came from the French Gardez-l'eau, watch out for the water. But all it meant was that people would open their windows and tip out onto the streets the contents of what was known as the nastiness bucket, the bucket that contained all of the waste collected by the household over the previous 24 hours. It was little platform soles, they were called pattens, underneath their shoes, and the hope was that that would lift them just high enough to be away from the general dirt and muck that was lying about on the streets. Beautiful crown-shaped spire. There's been a church or a religious building on that site there for almost 1,000 years.
Really?
It's a lovely old building to go in and see. And then opposite it, the building with the row of flags is the city chambers, and just beside the city chambers, the entrance to Mary King's Close, this underground city. The registered head office of the Lloyds banking group nowadays is this green dome building just ahead of us. It's the old Bank of Scotland head office. Bank of Scotland founded in 1695. So as we go down this hill, we've got this Georgian new town of Edinburgh over here on our right, and the old town of Edinburgh on our left. It grew up like a European medieval style of city with tall buildings and narrow little streets and passageways. Building the new town in this grid pattern of streets established Edinburgh as a North British style of city. The water of the Norway was drained from this deep valley. It had been put there first of all to try and improve the defences of Edinburgh Castle to the north. The whole valley had been flooded and filled with lovely clean spring water that flowed into this area. It became a disgusting polluted stretch of water as all of the waste from Edinburgh's old town was piled into it. And the first gardens that were made in Princes Street were private gardens for the use of Edinburgh's new town residents. The Scottish National Gallery here on our right, like all of the city's council-owned museums and art galleries, free to go into. And if you're walking along Princes Street, if you spot Hector Russell, the kilt maker's shop in the block on the left, you're seeing the only original house that's left in Princes Street. A very modest property, like the typical Georgian houses, though, 3 main floors, plus a basement where the kitchens were, and attic space where the servants lived. And we're going to have a little look at Queen Street and George Street, where there's lots more original architecture of Edinburgh's new town left. Princes Street, with hardly any original building left behind. So once we get up to the top of Hanover Street here, we're looking to the north of the city, and the water that lies to the north of Edinburgh is our main river, the River Forth. And the land on the other side of the river is the Kingdom of Fife. And if you go to visit the Royal Yacht Britannia, she's berthed just down by Edinburgh's port, the port of Leith. Leith, a town separate to the city of Edinburgh up until the 1920s. The statue just at this junction here If you walk along George Street, you'll find statues at every junction. This one here, King George IV. He visited Scotland in 1822, the first monarch to pay us a visit for more than 160 years. Street, which we're going to go along, first of all, the most northerly of the original Newtown streets. By the National Trust. You can go and have a look around and get an idea of life in this new town of Edinburgh. At the top of the Royal Scottish Academy. The university is the building with all the chimneys and the two towers just straight ahead of us. We're then going to turn left and down into Market Street, where these tours start and finish. And buses every 15 minutes today on this route. 9:35 tomorrow morning is the first one. 10 to 6 this afternoon is the last one on this route. A grand ticket means that you can use any of the city centre tour buses. So if you would like to be able to do that but don't have the right sort of ticket, you can just speak to any of our ticket sellers. The Majestic is the one that goes to the Royal Yacht Britannia. So let us come to our stop here. And this bus will be going away again within 15 minutes. So if you want to stay on board, there'll be another guide coming along. In the meantime, thank you from Joe and me for your company, and enjoy the rest of your stay here in the city. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
My name's Grant, I'm doing the tour. Joe's your driver. You've all got hop on tickets, so if you want to get off at one of the stops round about, please do let me know. Just untangle myself from this bag. Does anyone need the route map before you start? It lists all the stops available to you. They're listed in numerical order. I'll announce the most important stops when we're getting to them. I won't necessarily announce all the stops, so try and keep an eye on where you are in the route. Stop 3's for the Palace, stop 10's for the Castle, stop 7's for the National Museum of Scotland. But there are 11 stops in all, and the buses run until 10 till 6 in the evening. And it's a bonny day, isn't it? A beautiful day.
Yeah.
Little did you suspect when you came to Scotland that we possessed good weather to go with our sparkling personalities.
We think it's going to be cloudy.
You think it's going to be cloudy? Well, you're getting into the local pessimism, madam. I don't know if it'll be cloudy. Hopefully the weather stays like this. You'll see the city centre of Edinburgh in this tour. You'll see the old town, the new town. The old town's up there behind you on the ridge. The new town is everything beyond the nose of the bus. It was built from 1769 onwards. The whole of the city centre is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, has been since 1995. So it's up there with the whole of the city centre, yeah. The old town, the new town, and Edinburgh Castle. It's up there with the Leaning Tower of Pisa, the Pyramids of Egypt, the Great Wall of China. It's deemed culturally significant, and you'll see all of that on this tour.
The old town start from what year?
The old town of Edinburgh came into being about 1018, so 1,000 years ago or thereabout. That's when it became a borough, a functional town. Edinburgh as a word actually means fort on the hill. So if you look up to your left, bear in mind that before there was an old town, there was a fort up there in Castle Rock. Yeah. 6,000 years actually. Some archaeologists would suggest they've been settled up there in Castle Rock. I mean, it might be the longest continually occupied plot of land that exists in Scotland. Edinburgh, fort on the hill. Aiden's a Brythonic word, borough's a Northumbrian word. You'll see Castle Rock closer later in the tour, but that's where the city began. The old town behind you, essentially up to the 18th century, I don't know if you know this, madam, but the English and the Scots did not get on terribly well with one another. This is a surprise, I'm sure. Old Town Edinburgh, for that reason, had to be up out of harm's way because it was on the border very nearly. So if you look at the old town, you see it's almost like it's on the crest of a wave, you know, it all rises up behind us. And if you look to your right above the train station, you've got this bridge, North Bridge. The height that joins the old town behind us is ground level, up there. Everything ahead of you is not built until they create the United Kingdom, because the Union, 1707, it stopped England and Scotland invading one another, basically. They're ruled from one parliament. They get on, they start to love one another, and eventually they build a new town to turn Edinburgh into something cosmopolitan. They wanted Edinburgh to be a Berlin, a Paris, a Vienna, whereas up to the 18th century, as sophisticated as it was and as culturally advanced, it had the university since the late 16th century. It was half a square mile of land with no sewers, it lacked drinking water, it was old, reeky, old, smoky. So they built the new town, and it's regarded as one of the great feats of city planning ever undertaken. That's what you'll see on this tour. The new town's famous for its architecture, its townhouses. When you see something like Charlotte Square, it's regarded as one of the great Georgian squares in the UK. And all that spiel, and we've still not got through the traffic lights. That's remarkable. Luckily for you, you always keep tricks up your sleeve as a tour guide. In the hotel to your right, the big 5-star hotel with the clock tower over it, that's the Balmoral, overlooking Waverley train station. That's where Joe Rowling finished the Harry Potter books, in room 552 of the Balmoral Hotel. You look dubious, madam. That is true, and make it up. She lives in Edinburgh, she lives out by the airport. She's got an estate in Perthshire, and the richest woman in Britain nowadays, but when she came to Edinburgh back in the 1990s, Jo Rowling's actually a single parent, She left her husband in Portugal. She came to Edinburgh because her sister lived here. She didn't have much money though, so they say to save money on electricity bills, she takes this wee baby of hers around the cafes in town. She's hovering over cups of coffee. She starts scribbling notes on napkins about boy wizards and snitches. And to your right, St Andrew's House, which used to be where the Secretary of State for Scotland was based. Nowadays we have a Parliament rather than a Secretary of State, and you'll see the modern day Scottish Parliament. St Andrew's House from 1939 at the Writers' Museum up in the Old Town, stop number 10. Arthur's Seat, the hill, nobody knows specifically why it's called Arthur's Seat. Locals will generally tell you it's named after King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table. There is no evidence that would substantiate that, that's just a guess. The locals will generally tell you it's called Arthur's Seat because it looks like a crouched lion from the other side of the park, a lion couchant, one of King Arthur's heraldic symbols. Arthur's Seat might actually just be a corruption of the Scots Gaelic term Ardna Seat means height of arrows. Wherever the name comes from, it'll take you an hour to get to the top of the hill from the edge of the park. Get the hairdryer treatment there, lady. That'll wake you up. If you're very eagle-eyed, there is one building in the Queen's Park. It's called St Anthony's Chapel. It's a 14th century ruined church. Just disappeared from view. But we're coming up to a stop for the Palace of Holyrood House now, guys. This is stop number 3. The Palace, early 16th century. You will see it from the bus. You'll hear a lot about it. But if you want to stop for it, this is the stop coming up. Stop 3. And every 15 minutes you come back, you get another bus. Does anyone want it? No! Your hair's looking lovely, madam. Don't worry about it. There's a few twigs in that. A few twigs and acorns from the tree branches. The palace you'll see best from the south side. We're at the north side of it at the moment. There's a couple of seats there if you want. You were very near the top of Colwyn Hill there, so I'm not sure the winds will be as high velocity for the rest of the tour. And you're going to get a suntan if you stay outside. Suntan in Edinburgh, people won't believe you. Coming up on your left, that's Mary's bathhouse, this little building just hopping over the fence from the time of Mary, Queen of Scots herself. Mary is very associated with the Palace of Holyrood House. She used to stay in the north towers of it, and it's the north towers that you'll see through the main gate, just here to your left. Mary Stuart's royal apartments. Used to daub red paint on the floorboards in there and tell people it was David Rizzio's blood. David Rizzio was Mary Queen of Scots' best friend, closest confidant. He was brutally murdered in 1566 by the Scottish nobility in the palace there to your left. And because the palace is associated with Mary Queen of Scots, it is associated with a fair degree of murder and mayhem, you know. Her second husband is buried somewhere in that back garden, which is, you know, a hair-raising thought if the Queen ever invites you to a garden party. Where is Henry Lord Darnley? Somebody there. Somewhere beneath the rose. You look up there, oh aye. If you look at the top of the Bank of Gorse bushes, the Bank of Scree, you'll see people on the Radical Road. Round and round the Radical Road, the Radical Rascal Rand. The Radical Road is a road built by radicals, Glaswegian radicals at that. And it was built in the early 19th century. These lads had been fighting the Napoleonic Wars, but they returned to Britain. They were weavers by trade, they had no work to do, and they were worried that they would revolt themselves, so these radicals were brought through Edinburgh, told to build that pathway. If you go halfway up the Radical Road to the highest point, you get a lovely view out over the palace of Holyrood House and over the Scottish Parliament here, which is altogether more modernist. There we go. Approach it with an open heart. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but it won the Sterling Prize for Architecture in 2005, which is, well, the UK's most prestigious architectural prize, designed by Enrique Morales, who is an architect from Barcelona. Yep. It has grass growing on the roof of it. You can see this to your left. And I'm not entirely sure it would be Prince Charles's cup of tea. This is our dynamic Earth. It's a geological museum. You go inside, you experience the Big Bang. It'll take you on a journey through the history of the planet Earth, simulated earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, bubbling puddles of primordial ooze, and velociraptors. See the mouse here? It's very good for the kids. It's a rainy day attraction. You will be out of the sun. It's a Millennium project as well. It looks like the Millennium Dome. As you look round about you, you don't see very much old architecture. That is because Holyrood is where we used to do stuff. You know, people ask, what do you do? Well, the palace here is used purely for state function. Killed James IV, last monarch of the British Isles to suffer that fate. The Scottish nobility were wiped out, and anyone who made it back, they built the wall down there. Chill left. That's the travel lodge. Aye. And then you've got the World's End to your left, which is the sobriquet of the city gate. They actually have a section of the Flodden Wall in their beer cellar. But now, your first stop within the Old Town. Can we get a stop here, please, Joe? You've got John Knox's house back there to your right, which is beautiful. And to your left, you have the Museum of Childhood. So where you guys are headed? Alright. It's quite good, the Museum of Childhood. You enjoy your day. Every 15 minutes, you're welcome. Just come back. And you're going to see Greyfriars Boggy now as well. Wee Boggy the dog. You know, there are 400 to 500 tombstones in that cemetery. There are reckoned to be a conservative estimate of 250,000 bodies buried in. Well, glorious, the Great Hall. You ever seen the film The Prison of Miss Jean Brodie? That film popularised that view of the castle, the Great Hall. One Maggie Smith at hospital as well. And his partner in crime. William Hare was let off scot-free for his part in 17 murders, exonerated totally. William Burke was hanged in 1829 in front of 25,000 people on the Royal Mile, and then his own body was donated to medical science. There you go. You can see a skeleton. It's in Edinburgh University's Old Medical College Museum. To this very day. That to your left is a castle rock, the internal core of a volcano basically. Glacier, a tiny ice 2,000 feet thick, crashed into the rock 10,000 years ago, the end of the last ice age, and kind of tore away the outskirts of the volcano. Out to your right you'll see one of the best buildings in Edinburgh, George Heriot School, a little Renaissance style palace. The oldest school building in the city, 1659, the first intake of pupils to to your left, the Whisky Experience, a museum dedicated to the dram, single malt whisky. And then St John's Church to your left, the spire is the highest point we have in the old town. If you get lost in Edinburgh, look for the spire of that church. And if you're looking for the castle, you know, it's up the road to your left, just to the right of it. This is the castle stop, this is stop 10, and every 15 minutes you've got another bus coming round and round and round and round. So you can buy castle tickets outside the bus from the ticket sellers. The crown jewels of Scotland are up there on display, the National War Museum. You've got St Margaret's.
We couldn't pass. Coi tôi nghe nhạc giống như tụi anh ca hả? Whereas Oslo, Norway. Oslo Central Station. Oslo.
Dette er linje 12 fra Aker Brygge og Frogner til Majorstuen.
Central Station.
Mùa xuân thì chắc đẹp.
Xinh đẹp. Này cũng lạ chứ.
Cái này famous sculpture.
In the world.
Cũng là Visualan. ngựa mô chắc
cũng ngộ vậy.
bà đứng đây một chụp đúng giữa đứng
Ok. Hả? Là ủng hộ ha.
cái này cho nó đi còn đọc con cái sculpture tức là điêu khắc da đúng không? Thôi đi xuống rồi bạn.
Thôi đi dưới chưa lên tỉnh xuống đi. Chờ không đứng đây chờ về.
Như em thấy có
hay á. Ông già nữa. Ra gái ngộ ha.
cái này làm bằng granite hay là gì ta? Đá mài đúng rồi á, đá mài nè.
Hay hả?
Cũng phải có cái đầu óc ạt thì mới làm được. Cái đằng kia kìa, cái tượng đằng kia cũng hay kìa bác kìa. Cái tượng ở ngoài á. Bắt trước cái lục xâm bạc, lục xâm vua của cái này mấy cái này làm granite hết đấy chứ.
Công phu lắm mà.
Hả?
Công phu lắm mà.
Đó granite đó mày, nhưng mà không phải mài bóng. Cái này mấy đứa kiết à.
Đây, Royal Palace. Hỏi phản hồi này phải Royal Palace rồi.
Nhìn biết rồi.
That Royal Palace? Huh? Royal Palace?
Royal Palace, yes. The king.
Can go there? Can you come inside?
Oh, you can ask the guard.
Oh.
The ones who stand like this.
Royal Palace.
Unfortunately, I don't speak Spanish, but I speak Italian. So.
Andiamo.
E dove andiamo? First of all, buongiorno. First of all, as we are on a boat, we have to focus a bit on safety on board. We have life jackets, they are in the back, and some other are on the roof. And on the roof, we have also 2 life rafts. On this boat, you can find 3 emergency exits, so in the front, 1 on the left and 1 on the right, and 1 obviously in the back. So if something happens, you just jump out of the boat. Hopefully not, because the water is quite cold. We have a toilet here in the front, so if you need to use it, just come and ask me. And we have a bar where we sell some refreshments, coffee, tea, hot chocolate, wine, beer, and some snacks. And according to the Norwegian law, I have to show you how to wear the life jacket. It was rebuilt many times, and the last time it was rebuilt by the Danish king, Christian IV.